Hey everybody, I'm Chris, and welcome to Board on the Floor. Today I wanted to take a look at two announcements from Fantasy Flight Games that came out this week in regards to the Arkham Horror Files. One was for an expansion to the Arkham Horror card game, and the other was for a brand new game that is kind of a reimagining of the Battlestar Galactica game that went out of print about 10 years ago. I want to take a look at all the information that's been released so far, but I'm going to start off with discussing the new expansion for the Arkham Horror card game. For the first time, Fantasy Flight Games is actually putting out the expansion in its entirety. Before, whenever you wanted to get an expansion for the Arkham Horror card game, you actually had to pick up the box and then the 6 Mythos packs that continued the story. So the box had the 2 first chapters, and then each Mythos pack was another chapter in that series. But now they're releasing them all in one complete box. But what they've decided to do is there's going to be a scenario box and there's going to be an investigator box. So if you're interested in only following along with the storyline and you're happy playing the game with the investigators you have, then obviously you could just pick up the campaign box. But if you're more into deck building, well then the investigator box is what you're going to want to actually get your hands on. The expansion is called Edge of the Earth, and it's about an Antarctic exploration. Obviously, it's going to go bad. In the far uncharted reaches of Antarctica, unspeakable horrors dwell on the edge of shadows. So they've released some artwork and they've discussed how now they're going to be doing it in this format as opposed to the Mythos packs. The explanation of the storyline is brief, but they spend a lot of time discussing some of the new investigators that are going to be included in the investigator box. The campaign expansion is going to contain about 300 scenario cards, and the investigator box is going to contain about 250 cards. A lot of the cards in the investigator box are going to be brand new and things we haven't seen before. If you're not familiar with the Arkham Horror Files, it's just the name of the collection of horror games put out by Fantasy Flight Games, all inspired by the Cthulhu mythos. It started off with Arkham Horror, the second edition, and from there it has given us games like Elder Sign, Eldritch Horror, and even Mansion of Madness, aside from all the other Arkham Horror games like the actual board game and the card game. If you are familiar with these games, then you will recognize a lot of characters that kind of get carried over to each game, and obviously a lot of item cards, scenarios, and stuff like that. So in the new Edge of the Earth expansion, we're going to be introduced to some investigators that we have seen in other games. So the first investigator that they've announced is Lily Chen, a martial arts expert. We also are finally going to see Norman Withers. If you're familiar with Eldritch Horror, he is a character in there as well, the astronomer. So the campaign begins when the plane carrying your expedition crash lands in the Antarctic. Something has swatted it out of the sky. Most likely, an elder god. Will you uncover the secrets buried within the ice, or will you fall victim to the frozen horrors that lurk there? The 2 expansions for the Arkham Horror card game are currently on pre-order at the Fantasy Flight website, so I'll put a link in the description. The release date is currently September. And the other thing I wanted to discuss today was the announcement of a new game in the Arkham Horror Files called Unfathomable. It's a game of hidden loyalties, intrigue, and paranoia for 3 to 6 players. Fantasy Flight Games have been hinting about a rebranding of their classic Battlestar Galactica game. It's been out of print since 2008 and highly in demand. The original designer Corey Konishka has been involved in the reimagining of the game. Unfathomable finds you aboard the steamship the SS Atlantica, 2 days out from a port on its voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. In the game, some players will be human, some players will be hybrids, and some players will be elder gods. So you'll be going up against Mother Hydra or Father Dagon, or one of their minions, these human Deep One hybrids. That's why it's a 3 to 6 player game. Anytime you have a traitor, you usually need to have a few more players at the table. Unfathomable will take place years before any of the other board games in the Arkham Horror Files, so we're going to be introduced to new characters that have never been seen before. They haven't released a lot of information about the game, but they have unveiled one of the new characters, Captain Kelani Tatupu. She is a tough, experienced sailor and born survivor. So there will be a total of 12 characters adrift out on a lifeboat. And in these type of games, because there's a traitor in the midst of all of the players, you never know who is friend or foe. So while you're trying to survive, these Deep One hybrids are trying to sabotage everything. Similar to other games in the Arkham Horror Files, at the end of the player turn, you will be picking up a Mythos card that will introduce a crisis that together as a group you must resolve. Fantasy Flight has set a release date for September for Unfathomable, and I'm sure in the next few weeks we'll see a lot more information coming out. If you are interested in pre-ordering a copy, I'll put a link for that in the description as well. The suggested retail price is going to be around $80 USD. Not too sure what it'll be in Canada. Sometimes it's the same, sometimes it's just a bit more expensive. The Edge of the Earth campaign expansion will retail for about $60 US, and the Investigator box will be about $40. This is big news for the Arkham Horror Files board games. We haven't seen a new game in a long time, and changing up how the expansion boxes are released for the card game has been a long time coming. Before, having to pick up the core box and then all of those Mythos packs was a lot to ask, I think, for people who are interested in those campaigns, especially during the pandemic where a lot of those Mythos packs were sold out or out of print. So being able to complete some of the scenarios was impossible. Having the complete scenario in one box is going to make it a lot more accessible for people. I only got into the Arkham Horror card game this year, so being able to have the complete story as opposed to trying to track down all these Mythos packs is going to make it more enticing for me to actually pick it up. I've kind of been avoiding getting one of the big box expansions. I've only picked up the basic scenario ones, the little ones like the Murder at the Excelsior Hotel or was War of the Outer Gods. Diving into one of the large expansion box wasn't as appealing for me because I knew I couldn't get the complete set. But now with Edge of the Earth, I've already put in a pre-order and I'm very excited to get my hands on it. Since I've never had a chance to play the Battlestar Galactica game, I'm really curious about the release of Unfathomable. I love this universe and I enjoy all of the games that have been released in it so far. I haven't had a chance to get to Mansions of Madness yet, but it is on my list. Adding Unfathomable to the collection probably means that there's now a game for every type of player in this universe. As long as you're into the theme, I think you'll find something that you can enjoy. With these two announcements, fans of Arkham Horror have a lot to look forward to in September, and I'm sure in the next few weeks there'll be more information coming out, so as it is released, I will make new videos to let you know exactly what's happening. So thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.